Part 63. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 621. Chapter 621, Don't Let Go and Let Him Go. Tanyuj beside him suddenly opened his eyes and yelled heartbreakingly. Do not leave me. Qian Yuman was about to get out of bed, but was startled by Tanyuj's roar. She looked at Tanyuj in a panic, and saw him sitting up, looking ahead in confusion, obviously not awake yet. Tanyuj closed his eyes, lay on the bed again, and gradually fell asleep, but the expression on his face became painful. Don't leave him. Who is he calling not to leave him? A person who shouts not to leave him when he is drunk must have great hurt in his heart. Qian Yuman clenched her heart sadly, turned around and looked at Tanyuj, who fell on the bed and closed his eyes again. I miss you so much, don't leave me, don't abandon me. Tanyuj kept murmuring in his mouth, his eyes were closed tightly, and as he murmured, 2 lines of tears fell from the corners of his eyes. Tanyuj's series of reactions had a huge impact on Qian Yuman. Let her uncertain heart come to a conclusion. There was someone in her heart, and that person was most likely Murong 11. A person who is drunk, crying and shouting to the other person not to leave him. He has someone he loves, so he says he can't give her his love or fall in love with her. It's not that he doesn't know how to love, but he still loves someone else in his heart, so he can't give her even a little bit. If that person was really Murong 11, then they were still in love, and he didn't know what happened between them to separate them. It was clear that Murong 11 could never forget his old relationship. If one day they find each other and still can't let go of each other, then who is she? The extra in their relationship? Is there an obstacle standing in the way of them being together? Qian Yuman was tormented by her heartache, and she could no longer endure him crying in her sleep and shouting words that made her sad. Qian Yuman couldn't bear it anymore, so she ran out of the bedroom and squatted beside the sofa in the living room, her face pale in panic, and her heart was at a loss. Hearing the movement in the living room, Cupid, the pet dog that had been taken to the imperial capital, came over wagging his tail. Feeling Qian Yuman's sadness, he stretched out his tongue and gently licked her face. Only then did Qian Yuman realize that she was crying. Qian Yuman raised her palm, gently followed Cupid's fur, and spoke to the dog in confusion. Kyokyu, what do you think I should do, what should I do? She was still looking forward to getting Mr. Tang's love before, but now that she knows the truth, she is not sure. Cupid waggled his tail docilely, clung to her, and acted coquettishly with her. You want me to stick to him all the time, are you determined to let him go? Qian Yuman's eyes suddenly lit up. Cupid wagged his tail quickly and barked slightly, feeling a little excited. Are you happy to see me sad? Qian Yuman burst out laughing. She is his wife, and as long as she does not leave him, she can stay by his side. Because he promised that he would never abandon himself actively in this life. There is no love without love, and she must hold on to him tightly and never separate from him. Compared to leaving him, being pampered by him as his sister is also a kind of happiness. They are married and have 2 little babies. She has a lot of bargaining chips, so she doesn't believe she can't beat Murong 11. If they all break up, it means there is a problem, which will give her an opportunity. She shouldn't be afraid, she should have confidence and be prepared to never let go. But when she thought that he didn't love her, she felt unconvinced. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 622. Chapter 622. Qian Yuman is missing one. But when she thought that he didn't love her, she felt unconvinced. It was clear that she was showing more and more affection to him, but he still refused to give it to her. She really wanted him to fall in love with her and become a truly loving couple. Woo woo woo. Suddenly he looked down on himself. He clearly cared about it, So why didn't he wake him up and ask him who the person he was talking about was? If you ask clearly, you don't have to think wildly. It's just that you are timid and cowardly at the critical moment. It's useless to look down on yourself. You don't dare to ask him anything like this. How afraid are you of losing him? Isn't he just a man? What's so great about it? There are obviously so many people out there who like her, why would you find someone who doesn't love you? Woo woo woo. But, I'm so worried. Mind if the person in his heart is Murong 11? Will she one day not be able to bear it anymore and run away with the children? She didn't want to leave him at all, not at all. Having no ambition, being useless, looking down on oneself. Jian Yuman kept cursing her own weakness in her heart, which made her unable to sleep well all night. Later, she hugged Cupid until dawn. Tanyuj woke up the next day, looked at the cold bed beside him, got up and started calling her. Wife, where are you? After brushing his teeth and washing up, Tanyuj began to look for his wife. When he came to the restaurant, he saw everyone having breakfast in the restaurant, except Jian Yuman. Tanyuj rubbed his temples, greeted his friends, and then asked them about Jian Yuman's movements. Have you seen Jian? I haven't seen her since I got up early in the morning. Everyone looked at Tanyuj with amusement, and even Ji-fan was teasing him, saying that he was looking for his wife's wife together. Murong 11 heard Jian Yuman's absence and stood up, asking in a panic. Yuj, Manman didn't make things difficult for you when you went back last night, right? Embarrassed? Why are you embarrassing me? Tanyuj looked confused. Did he do something drunk last night? Murong 11's eyes flickered slightly and he lowered his eyes to look elsewhere. Maybe Manman was angry. Last night you were drunk and hugged me as if she were her. You happened to be bumped into me. I'm afraid she misunderstood us. What? Are you angry? Tanyuj's hangover discomfort disappeared instantly, and he jumped up in shock. I was really drunk and did stupid things and was misunderstood. As soon as he slapped his head, he immediately remembered that he had been woken up by Jian Yuman's bucket of water last night. He had forgotten it after waking up. He almost drank all the drinks last night, and he had almost forgotten what happened. Tanyuj immediately turned around and ran back to the room. Her ID was gone, her wallet was taken away, and even the dog she brought with her disappeared. Other changes of clothes were still there. The people from the Lan family also searched the house but could not find Jian Yuman. Later, they learned from the doorman that Jian Yuman had left with her bag in the morning and had been gone for at least 2 hours. When she left, her expression was dull, and she didn't pay any attention to her. Tanyuj called her several times in succession, but they all showed that the other party's phone was turned off and the call could not be reached. Jian Yuman suddenly disappeared. Almost the entire Lan family was mobilized to search for Jian Yuman, but no trace of her was found in the imperial capital. There was no flight record of her at the airport. I called the Tang family and learned that she had not returned. She seemed to have evaporated and disappeared without a trace, which made Tanyuj very anxious. Where is she hiding? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 623. Chapter 623 Jian Yuman is missing too. Tanyuj was searching all over the world, while Jian Yuman rented a car leisurely and drove around to relax. After a sleepless night, she drove out of the imperial capital and headed for a place with beautiful scenery. She would play and relax for 3 days. She would drive back to the imperial capital when she was done playing. Talent appeared in the imperial capital, and Tanyuj appeared in front of her. Tanyuj's face was a little ugly, especially when he saw Tianyuman appearing in front of him in a good mood and waving hello happily when he saw him. "Where have you been, woman?" Tanyuj endured not to yell out. Tianyuman held Cupid in her arms and blinked her eyes innocently. "Traveling. Are you going on a trip? Why didn't you answer my phone calls? Didn't you reply to the texts I sent you? Didn't you say something to me when you left? Don't you know how worried I am about you?" Tanyuj kept talking. Tianyuman's ears almost grew calluses just thinking about it. "Okay, okay. Are you bored? I'm just going out to play for 3 days, and I'm just thinking about it all the time. It's not like you don't know that I love traveling. I suddenly became interested in traveling by car, so I took Cupid on the trip." Yes, Tianyuman smiled and touched the pet dog in her arms with a playful smile. "Self-driving tour? Look at your belly, you actually went on a self-driving tour." Tanyuj rolled his eyes and fainted in anger. Tianyuman's belly was already slightly bulging. She was a mother pregnant with twins, and she actually told him that she was in the mood and wanted to travel. "Why are you so mean?" Tianyuman glanced at him coldly with disgust, then walked leisurely ahead with Cupid in her arms. Tanyuj sighed helplessly and immediately chased after him, explaining while chasing. "I'm not trying to hurt you, I'm worried about you. I didn't even answer my calls, and I didn't know where you were. I almost turned over the imperial capital and cities, but I couldn't find you. Do you know how worried everyone is about you? I don't want to hurt you, but I am concerned about your safety. It is very dangerous for you as a pregnant woman to go out alone. Even if you want to go out to play, you must tell me and let me accompany you." Tianyuman stopped and turned to glare at him. "I just don't want him to accompany me. You are so annoying, I am so tired, I want to take a rest." Tianyuman puffed out his cheeks angrily and automatically blocked out his thoughts. She has been in a much better mood after relaxing these past few days. Tanyuj sighed helplessly again and hugged her from behind, preventing her from leaving. "Are you still angry? You were drunk that day, so you mistakenly mistook 11 for you and hugged you. I promise you won't drink casually next time. Please don't run away from home casually again. I will worry about your safety. I will. I'm so anxious." There was endless helplessness in Tanyuj's voice, and he was going crazy with anxiety during this time. "Oh," Tianyuman responded lightly. Tanyuj explained again, "I really just drank too much that night. I have never done anything sorry for you, and I will never do anything in this life. You have to believe me. You know, I hate cheating very much, and there is no way I would do anything sorry for you." "Oh," Tianyuman responded faintly again, a smile slowly appearing in her eyes. "Wife, why don't you believe me? I was really drunk at the time and thought she was you. I promise you that I will never drink randomly in the future or do stupid things when drunk to make you sad." End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 624. Chapter 624. Tianyuman is missing 3. Tanyuj reiterated again, clearly stating that he had done something wrong this time and would not dare to do it next time. "Humph!" Tianyuman snorted arrogantly. The smile in his eyes actually got thicker. He was still very satisfied with her performance after she came back. Seeing Tanyuj's anxious look on her, he would be lying if he said he was unhappy. In fact, before she came back, she was so scared that he didn't respond. Now she saw him explaining anxiously, scolding and caring with love, and she felt sweet in her heart. At least it proves that his status in his heart is still very high. She had been thinking about the question for a long time in the past few days, but she still didn't say it out loud. She asked him whether he and Murong 11 were lovers in the past, and who was the person who kept mumbling to him not to leave him when he was drunk. Could it be Murong 11? However, after hearing what he said, he would never do anything to feel sorry for her, which gave her reassurance. If it is true as he said, as long as she does not leave him, he will not let her go and do anything sorry for her. Even if there is someone in his heart, she will squeeze that person out of his heart in the future. Wife, please don't be angry. Honey, I know I was wrong. Is it okay to never drink again? Honey, if you continue to ignore me, I will go crazy. This time I deeply realized my mistake and repented for 3 days. Please forgive me. Tanyuj kept pestering Jianyuman and talking, and finally Jianyuman became impatient and yelled at him at the top of her voice. Go away. Back at the Lan family, everyone finally no longer needs to look for Jianyuman all over the world. Jianyuman returned to the room, but still didn't talk to Tanyuj much. Tanyuj racked his brains and said many nice things, but Jianyuman still didn't let Jianyuman pay attention to him. He was also very helpless and wanted to cry. Just when Jianyuman was about to take a shower and catch up on her sleep, she smelled a familiar sweet fragrance in the air. Tanyuj appeared in the room with a big durian in his hand. The expression on his face was painful. He did not need other items in his hands. He appeared in front of her holding the durian directly, placed it on the ground, and suspended it in the air with his knees bent. Honey, please forgive me. If you don't forgive me, I will keep kneeling until you are willing to forgive me. Tanyuj pinched his ears with both hands. The expression on his face was very pitiful, and he opened his evil eyes. He looked at her, sincerely repenting. In order to make his wife forgive him, Tanyuj also took great pains, and finally came up with his wife's favorite durian to punish himself and make his wife feel sorry for him. The weakness of his feet was uncomfortable, and he had to endure the stench in the air. It was an all-round irritation for him. Jianyuman glanced at Tanyuj lightly, and smiled. Then just kneel down for a while. When I feel better, you can stand up again. With Jianyuman's order, Tanyuj's journey of kneeling on durians began. While observing Tanyuj, who sincerely admitted his mistake, he played with his mobile phone boredly, and even took photos with great interest as a souvenir. After all, this kind of picture can only be encountered but cannot be sought. Tanyuj was not just kneeling, he kept saying nice words to coax Jianyuman, but Jianyuman had no intention of letting him get up. Instead, the crowd was very happy. Suddenly, Jianyuman stood up. Tanyuj thought she was coming to help him, but saw her running out happily. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 625. Chapter 625. Jianyuman is missing 4. Honey, where are you going? Can you forgive me and let me get up before you leave? Tanyuj shouted at the top of his voice. His feet were sore and he knelt on the sharp thorns of the durian. The pain was so painful that he almost shed tears. So sad, I feel like crying. Jianyuman ignored his whining and opened the door in a good mood. As soon as the door opened, a group of people fell in, all of them eavesdropping on the crowd outside the door. Xiaoling smiled awkwardly and turned around to hide behind Lan Tianlu. Ji Fan grinned and kept looking around, curious about what was going on inside. As expected, the guys who were not afraid of too many things to join in the fun were very excited and happy when they saw Tanyuj kneeling on the durian inside. However, seeing Jianyuman's expression, they immediately pretended to be looking at the scenery one by one, but the expressions on their faces still betrayed them. Does it look good? Jianyuman grinned. Ji Fan nodded quickly and said with a smile. Very beautiful. Then you go in and take a look. The picture is even better. Jianyuman sincerely invited them in, but they quickly rejected it. How could they dare to go in? Even if Jianyuman was serious, Tanyuj would scold him to death afterwards, so it was better for them not to go in. Jianyuman invited again, but no one came in, so she stepped out again. It would be their loss if they didn't go in. Jianyuman ran away in a hurry. The onlookers looked confused. What is the situation now? Not long after, Qian Yuman came back, with a kitchen knife in her hand. Everyone was startled when they saw the kitchen knife in her hand. Xiaoling and Fei Fanfan rushed over. "Senior, calm down, you will go to jail for murdering your husband. Manman, don't be impulsive. Yuj already knows that he is wrong. Put down the kitchen knife in your hand." Qian Yuman looked at the two women blocking her and burst into laughter. "What are you doing? I'm not trying to kill anyone, I'm just cutting durian." Well. The expressions on everyone's faces were very rich. Unexpectedly, Qian Yuman went to get the knife not to murder her husband, but to eat durian. The plot twist catches people off guard. Tang Yuj also didn't expect that Qian Yuman went out to get a knife to cut the durian, and his knees didn't even hurt when he was kneeling on the durian. Qian Yuman ran in and stretched out her hand to push Tang Yuj away. He knelt for a long time. Tang Yuj fell directly to the ground when she pushed him. Qian Yuman didn't pay attention to his situation. She wore a protective glove with her left hand and cut the durian skillfully. The smell of durian spread quickly throughout the room, making the onlookers outside the door deeply aware of how fragrant and delicious this durian was. Several men ran away immediately, but Xiaoling remained where he was, looking curiously, waiting for what would happen next. Tang Yuz's expression was particularly expressive. He couldn't stand the smell of durian. He couldn't stand the smell of durian. He couldn't leave now, and it was extremely painful to stay. It was simply a kind of torture. He could only pinch his nose and keep rubbing his knees. Qian Yuman took out the pulp with a smile and handed it to Tang Yuj. "Wife, don't eat." Qian Yuman's expression darkened, and he bared his teeth in a threatening manner. "Don't you want me to forgive you? After eating this piece of durian, I will consider forgiving you for making mistakes when you were drunk." Tang Yuz's expression became strange. While he was disgusted, he forced himself to get closer. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 626. Chapter 626. Tang Feishan leaves the Tang family. 1. Tang Yuj slowly opened his mouth, with an expression as if he wanted to eat shit, and slowly moved closer to the durian, his nose constantly twitching, very painful. "Would you like to eat it?" Qian Yuman urged, looking unhappy and her face darkened. "Eat, eat, eat." Tang Yuj nodded frantically, swallowed, closed his eyes, opened his mouth and bit into the durian, which had a strange texture and was so soft that it melted into his mouth with just a slight bite. The smell of durian that he had never experienced before swept over his taste buds instantly, and his body shook uncontrollably, and his body was trembling with discomfort. The smell was so intoxicating, and the stench was so outrageous that he felt like he had become stinky. Looking at Tang Yuz's painful look, Qian Yuman smiled happily. Seeing him being tortured, she felt a sense of relief. Cool. Tang Yuj finally swallowed the durian in his mouth, and Qian Yuman handed it over again. Forced by her lustful power, he opened his mouth in pain and continued to bite down the durian. Qian Yuman was very happy to feed her. The time was not short, about 10 minutes, and Tang Yuj finally got rid of the 2 durians. "I also ate 2 petals, but it took less than 3 minutes." Tang Yuj, who had finished eating the durian, looked at Qian Yuman pitifully, pointed to his mouth and spoke. "Have you forgiven me?" The moment he opened his mouth to speak, a pungent smell of durian rushed out. A stink worse than feces actually spurted out of his mouth. Qian Yuman glanced at him, shook his head and said, "No forgiveness. How could this be possible? I've already eaten durian." Tang Yuj was about to cry. She endured the humiliation and was still not forgiven by her. Sure enough, He can't drink casually in the future. Even if he drinks, he must stay with his wife. Otherwise, if there is a bigger crisis next time, he may not just eat durian. There are always people who want to join in the fun. The next day, Ji-fan found a group of beautiful girls and appeared in front of Tang Yuj, or more precisely in front of Jian Yuman. He even ordered these girls to seduce Tang Yuj. Tang Yuj instantly felt that his little gun was under threat, and awkwardly crossed his legs, not daring to look at Jian Yuman. When those women approached, he turned around and ran away. Regardless of whether Jian Yuman wanted to or not, he took Jian Yuman back to the imperial capital the next day. He was in such a hurry that he left all the dogs behind. Now in Ji-fan's arms, the dogs' lives were threatened. Cupid means very innocent, Cupid means very painful, and Cupid means very sad. Since her mother had a new father, she paid less attention and love to it. It was originally her little baby. As soon as Jian Yuman returned to S City, the Tang family exploded. It completely exploded because Tang Feishan moved out of the Tang family and didn't go to work at Tang Dynasty Group for many days. When Tang Yuj and the others went to S City before, Tang Feishan's refusal to go to the Tang Dynasty Group had not yet happened. When it happened, Jian Yuman's disappearance had not been reported to them. It was not until they came back that they knowing that Tang Feishan gave up the inheritance rights of the Tang Dynasty Group for a woman. He even threatened to run away from home with Qi Lilei. Jian Yuman and the others did not expect that the world would change after they had not returned for a few days. The atmosphere in the Tang family became very depressing, especially Tang's father, who almost turned into a volcano, erupting when he saw people. Jian Yuman found her sister when she returned to S City. Tang Feishan moved to the Qi family these days, and the two were preparing to go abroad. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 627. Chapter 627 Tang Feishan leaves the Tang family too. Seeing Tang Fei's luggage at Qi's house, Jian Yuman was really sure that they were going to elope. The two sisters went to bed together tonight and let the two brothers sleep together. Especially recently, Jian Yuman had not planned to talk to Tang Yuj and was still sulking in her heart. Lilei, do you really want to go abroad? Jian Yuman grabbed her sister's hand, frowning and reluctant to leave. She and her sister finally reunited, but they didn't expect that they would be separated soon, and they wanted to be together for a while again. Feishan and I have decided Qi Lil naturally couldn't bear to leave her sister, but S City was no longer suitable for them to stay. Hey, I respect your decision. Jian Yuman pouted her cherry lips, reluctant to leave. A faint smile appeared on Qi Lilei's lips, and she hugged her sister gently. We will come back often in the future. Now that airplanes are so advanced, we can fly back in no time. Hey. Then you must come back often. My belly is not big now and I can fly to you. When my belly gets bigger after a while, it may not be convenient to go to you often. Now my belly is getting bigger day by day. After a month, my belly was as big as a balloon. Kindness. You and Feishan are so brave. I never thought you would decide to elope. Who suggested it? Fly and sink. It was Tang Feishan who couldn't bear the thought of Qi Lilei being humiliated by Father Tang again and again, so he wanted to take her far away from Father Tang's surveillance. It's so romantic. Jian Yuman rolled on the bed, truly envious of them. Tang Feishan was able to give up everything he had now for his sister and leave together to a strange country. Although there are many hardships between them, they love each other. All problems are not problems. No matter how big the problem is, they can face it together. If they can't handle it, they can walk away, and they can still live a loving life as a couple. I envy you and your brother-in-law even more. The smile on the corner of Jian Yuman's mouth disappeared instantly. She turned her back to her sister with some sadness. She noticed something was wrong with Jian Yuman, and Qi Lilei's cold eyes fell on her. Sister, Are you still angry with your brother-in-law? The incident of Jian Yuman's disappearance a few days ago caused a storm in the city and everyone knew about it. Jian Yuman nodded and said a little sadly. I go out more and regulate myself. Self-regulation, Qi Lili, I didn't understand. Isn't there a misunderstanding? Just say no. Jian Yuman closed her eyes sadly and told her sister what she wanted to say on her chest, as well as some things she had not told her for a long time. She needs someone to talk to. Few people know the reason for being with Tang Yuj. She didn't want to worry her sister and never told her before. As time went by, her belly got bigger and bigger, and the pressure in her heart became heavier and heavier. Especially in the eyes of outsiders, Tang Yuj and she were a very loving couple, but in reality she only had unrequited love, and Tang Yuj simply didn't care. I don't love her, I just think of her as my sister. Ridiculous sister, she doesn't want to be his sister at all. After listening to Jian Yuman's words, Qi Lili was in disbelief. How could my brother-in-law not love you? His eyes will always follow you, and there is always love between him and you unintentionally. All outsiders can think that they are a loving couple. Naturally, there are many intangible things, such as the tone of voice and the eyes that accidentally look at each other. Those things cannot deceive people. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 628. Chapter 628 The Past of Tang Wentao and Jian Xianer 1. But Mr. Tang just said that he doesn't love me and only treats me as my sister, Jian Yuman said depressedly. Not to mention Qi Lili, she was convinced that Tang Yuj loved her deeply. Otherwise, given her character, how could she take the initiative to give her love? Those who are the first to give and the first to invest emotionally will always suffer more. At the beginning, she thought that Tang Yuj could be entrusted with her for the rest of her life, and that she loved and loved herself deeply, so she continued to fall deeply into the love web he weaved. As a result, after she fell in love with him and fell in love with him, he told her that he loved her as if she was just a sister and had no feelings at all. Is there any reason for brother-in-law? Qi Lili boldly hypothesized. He clearly loves you, but maybe he can't show his love to you because he has an ulterior secret. Jian Yuman shook her head and rejected her sister's guess. Is there any reason why he doesn't love his wife? Tang Yuj just doesn't believe in love because his mother's marriage failed, leaving a psychological shadow. The two sisters lamented at the same time that they must have done something wrong to the Tang brothers in their previous lives, so that they fell in love with their brothers in this life, which was simply asking for abuse. Jian Yuman also deeply agreed with Qi Lili's statement that they must have done something wrong in their previous lives to suffer emotional trauma and suffering in this life. The time for Qi Lili and Tang Feishan to leave the country has been decided, and it will be the day after Tang Xingai's engagement party ends in a week. Tang Feishan has stopped working at the Tang Dynasty Group in the past few days. Tang's father said it himself in the first place, so now he can't help it. The relationship between the father and son is very tense, and no one is willing to bow his head. Seeing that the time was almost up, Tang's father's face became increasingly uglier, especially without Tang Feishan's help. His workload had more than doubled. Jian Yuman still doesn't pay much attention to Tang Yuj these days, because Qi Lili is leaving, so these days, she and Qi Lili stick together every day, treating Tang Yuj as nothing. Ever since she learned about the emotional problems between her sister and her brother-in-law, Qi Lili looked at Tang Yuj in a different way, full of disapproval. After all, she had thought that Tang Yuj was a good man since she met him, and he was doting on Jian Yuman's man all the time. In recent days, Grandma Tang actively called Jian Yuman to go back to Tang. She made various excuses to delay her, but in the end she did not delay. Only when she returned to Tang's house did Jian Yuman find out that Tang Yuj had interceded with Grandma Tang. She talked earnestly about how husband and wife should get along, and also said a lot of good things for Tang Yuj, all of which said that he was a dedicated person. Couples should communicate more in the future, and should not just take things superficially, but should be more considerate of each other and other things. Jian Yuman naturally knows this, but she just feels uncomfortable and is petty. Can't women be petty emotionally? She had tried hard not to ask about Murong 11. Could it be that she was sulking and wanted to ignore him for the time being? However, in recent days, Tang Yu's behavior has been very good, almost always responding to requests. Jian Yuman said she wanted to eat stinky tofu from the corner, so she went out to buy it in the middle of the night. She wanted to eat mung bean cakes from the next door area, so she immediately served the hot mung bean cakes. Seeing that he sincerely apologized and the family compensated, Jian Yuman felt much better. On a dark and windy night, a figure appeared in Tang's father's study. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 629. Chapter 629 The Past of Tang Wentao and Jian Xian'er 2. This figure is Comrade Jian Yuman. Ever since she was disturbed by Qi Yuking last time, she has been wondering what kind of information there is in the pile of information in Tang's father's drawer. She was still hesitating about how to talk to Tang's father because it related to her mother's affairs. If her mother is really in the hands of Father Tang, she will feel more at ease, believing that Father Tang will not do anything too excessive to her mother. But before talking about it, she wanted to investigate by her own means. After all, if she directly asked Tang's father, she might be completely denied, refused to admit, or even wiped out completely. In the middle of the night, at 1 o'clock in the morning, Jian Yuman sneaked into Tang's father's study like a thief. She held a small flashlight in her hand and walked in carefully. When she entered, she specially observed the surrounding environment to make sure that everyone was asleep. No one will find themselves breaking in. Qi Yuking has not appeared in front of Jian Yuman in recent days, which has upset her. I believe she will not barge in suddenly this time. After Jian Yuman entered, he immediately closed the door and quickly found the golden key he saw last time. The key was still there, and Jian Yuman almost screamed with joy when she saw it. After getting the key, she walked quietly to the desk, inserted the key into the hole, and quickly opened the lock. Seeing that the original bag of information was still in the cabinet, Jian Yuman's face was full of smiles. When she took out the key, she intuitively raised her head and looked at the door to make sure no one broke in suddenly. Then she sat down and took out the information inside, and carefully observed the documents inside. When the information in her hand was displayed in front of her one by one, Jian Yuman looked at the pile of information in her hand in shock. These information are very clear, showing the last investigation time, as well as Jian Xian'er's life in the past 20 years, with the most detailed information in the last few years. These materials also included the investigation of Jian Yuman, and naturally Qi Lili's information was not left out. These information almost all revolve around the investigation of Jian Xian'er. They are only incidental, just because the detective agency has investigated it relatively clearly, and their basic information is included. After reading this information, Jian Yuman is almost certain of one thing. Tang's father doesn't know anything about her mother's past 20 years, and the information in her hand indicates that it was not long ago. Why does the data appear like this? Daddy Tang was not the one who took away his mother? Then who took mom away? What's the purpose of that person? Did Tang's father and his mother really be lovers before? If Dad Tang has always been deeply in love with mom, why did he start investigating her recently? Doubts appeared in her mind one after another. She thought that after she knew the information in the drawer, she would be able to fully understand the relationship between her mother and Father Tang. Now I find that I can't fully understand it at all. After reading it, I became even more confused. What is the relationship between mother and father Tang? She could only make sure that they knew each other. This was something she had already assumed before. It seems that if you want to continue to understand your mother's affairs, you must ask clearly in front of Tang Wentao, what was their previous relationship? Do you know any clues about where your mother is? Although the whereabouts of my mother are still a mystery, we can clearly know the relationship between Tang's father and Qian's mother, and it is very likely that they were lovers in the past. What are you doing? End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 630. Chapter 630 The Past of Tang Wentao and Qian Xian'er 3. Perhaps, asking Tang's father will help him know what happened to his mother in the past and the entanglement between them. Qian Yuman quickly browsed through all the information in her hand and basically confirmed some things. She felt extremely calm. Regardless of whether mom and dad Tang were lovers in the past, she and Tang Yuj are husband and wife, and there is nothing to be afraid of. Just when Qian Yuman was about to put the materials in her hands back into the drawer, the closed study door opened. Qian Yuman hadn't put the materials in her hands yet. When she heard the movement at the door, she suddenly raised her head and looked over. I saw a slightly tall figure standing at the door. What are you doing? Because she was hiding from the light, she couldn't see her face. But even if you can't see the face, you can guess who it is when you hear the voice, and the study room belongs to the owner of the voice. Dad Qian Yuman put down the information in her hands guiltily and put her hands behind her back. Even though she had decided to ask Father Tang personally about the relationship between him and her mother, it was still very embarrassing for him to catch her sneaking into his study. Dad, why don't you go to bed so late? The smile on Qian Yuman's face was unpretentious. Tang Wentao had a serious expression on his face. He approached her with a straight face and his eyes fell on the pile of information she had just put down. You peeked at my things, Tang Wentao said firmly. Qian Yuman smiled awkwardly and lowered her head guiltily. Sorry. She had no way of explaining it. She just snuck in and looked for clues, and it was obvious that she had to look through it all over to determine the target. Humph! Tang Wentao sneered and reached out to take the information into his hand. Are you curious? Have you seen everything? Qian Yuman nodded obediently. Tang's father had discovered it anyway, so why not ask him in person now to save himself the trouble of thinking and making random guesses? Just before Tang's father was about to lose his temper, Qian Yuman mustered up the courage to explain. Dad, don't be angry. I know what I did this time is too much, but I am really curious. I once saw you drunk, holding a photo of you and my mother when you were young, and I didn't know that you knew each other. Later, I found out that you had a relationship, but I was too embarrassed to ask you in person. Because of my mother's current whereabouts, I secretly investigated your relationship, and that's why I secretly came in to look for information. Tang Wentao frowned and looked at Qian Yuman coldly, his brows furrowed. I'm really curious about your relationship with your mother. You seemed very close at one time. Why didn't you contact each other in the end? Was it really the mother's intervention that caused the relationship between Tang's father and Tang's mother to deteriorate? Do you still need me to speak frankly? Tang Wentao slammed the information in his hand on the table. When the document fell to the ground, Qian Xian'er's photo slid out. In the photo, Qian Xian'er smiled brightly and it was a selfie. Seeing that Tang's father's mood swings were too high, Qian Yuman did not dare to ask any more questions. After all, it was an elder's matter. If she bothered to ask, she would make Tang's father unhappy. However, we still have to ask about my mother's whereabouts. You don't want to answer, so I won't ask again? Do you know if there was a man named Mr.? Since they knew each other when they were young and their relationship is so close, they should know who their mother's friends are. End of this chapter.